Where once ethnic businesses stood, today beauty salons and smoke shops are present. The fiber of Miami is being stripped away by changing times. Some businesses stand the test of time and continue to be staples in Miami decade after decade, but others are now gone. Neighborhoods that were outdated are being revitalized and turned into tropical paradises that are catching huge numbers on today's real estate market. Normal looking neighborhoods are being transformed into luxury communities that the neighborhood's original residents could never afford. What were once small businesses today are massive constructions. Miami was said to be the capital of Latin America. Sadly, a lot of the businesses that cater to those customers today are nothing more than rundown homeless camps. We're going to learn about how gentrification and anti-Hispanic sentiments and laws are destroying what was once a prosperous city and turning it into an open landfill, and how hard-working communities have turned neighborhoods that had a bad reputation into what is today attractive real estate. Neighborhoods that were scary and dangerous today are welcoming tourists. In 2009, the Brown Sub neighborhood was thriving, but today it looks like it's been economically forgotten. Apparently this guy was collecting pallets for many years, but today there's a very expensive Corvette on the driveway. Does hard work really pay off year after year? We're going to explore all this on today's video to see if the city of Miami has gotten better or if it's gotten worse. So many people comment on my channel that Miami has gone to crap. On today's video, we're going to explore and see if that's a true statement. It's 2008, we're right outside of downtown Miami. Notice that the window has rust coming off the metal bars and that there's a lot of people vagrantly hanging out outside of this green apartment complex. By 2023, you can see that it's been repainted. There's no more visible rust. The building now has a more appealing color theme. The windows look like they've been replaced or cleaned up extensively. There are people hanging out, but they're behind the railing, not outside by the road. Some landscaping has been added to the building, and some of the metal bars within the interior of the courtyard are now gone. I would say this particular complex has had a very positive change. It's 2014, we're in Hialeah, Florida, a suburb northwest of Miami. You can see there's boarded up windows, and these apartments or duplexes are quite literally in complete ruin. By 2019, you can see some minor renovations have taken place and it looks more inhabitable. The most recent image from 2022 shows a nice apartment complex. Even the cars parked out front look much nicer. 2014 Liberty City Housing Complex. 2022 luxury apartments. Only the tenants who had the absolute best credentials were allowed to continue living in this facility. I think now there's also mixed in apartments that you can rent. 2018, this house just needed a little bit of pressure washing to be restored. 2023, they painted it white and got rid of the beautiful vegetation it had. You don't paint natural stones. You can never go back. I really cannot co-sign this because it looked cozy and cool, and now it just looks old. But hey, it's your house. Do whatever you want. 2017, this house was in the hood, though. 2021, this house was in the hood, though. Alright, this house just goes through different stages of being in the hood. 2019, a prosperous business in Little Haiti. But by 2022, what the crap happened to this business? Boarded up and litter everywhere? 2008, this apartment complex in Overtown was quite the hangout spot. But by 2023, the people were gone, the building had received a mural, and some type of effort had been done to restore the natural brick on the bottom of the building. It went from having people outside on a sidewalk to having people on a mural. Does anybody think that's kind of weird? They got rid of the real people outside and then just put up murals of fake people on the wall. 2015 beautiful purple bougainvillea theme and an American flag. By 2023, the bougainvilleas were gone, the house was no longer purple, and they put a Cuban flag exactly where the American flag was. I know exactly where this house is, and it goes through changes quite often. Notice how neither one of them got rid of the baby blue on the peak of the roof. I mean, it's just temporary paint changes. Why even get that detailed? Notice also how the warning and keep out signs became bigger and more elaborate. These are row houses, so by putting up this panel, he kind of breaks up the flow of that neighborhood. Seems like this person's a little rebellious, or at the very least is purposely trying to aggravate people by the way they're living. Yes, it's their house and they can do whatever they want, but it seems like to me they're doing things on purpose to aggravate other people in a very passive aggressive manner. Now this house is right off the interstate on 95, so you can see it from the highway. Kind of makes it a focal point. So these types of properties are usually going to be kind of like boundary markers for neighborhoods, where people are going to purposely try to make some type of nationalistic statement because of the location of the property. 2014, this little house in Opelika looked kind of nice, kind of a coral color. 2023, they completely modernized the property, and this is happening a lot in neighborhoods like Opelika. I kind of like the coral colors more though. This might increase the real estate value of this property, but I think it stole a lot of the character that the property had with the palm trees and the nice Florida theme almost. 2011 Hialeah Gardens, kind of a nice suburban area of Miami, big yard. By 2022, a lot of changes had taken place, landscaping, a more modern paint color with, of course, a brand new roof. I think this house looks a lot better now. It looks more modern and tropical and refreshing. While definitely being a very big house, it looked a little outdated. I think with a little bit more decorative landscaping work and maybe some lighting at night, this house could look spectacular. 2008, before everybody was on their phones, this northwest corner of Miami had a lot of people outside. By 2023, the corner store building behind this was gone. The people were gone, the rents were higher, and a completely new high-rise apartment building had shown up. Does anybody kind of miss the old days where everybody was outside talking and playing versus today where everybody's inside on their phones, computers, and devices? What do you think? Things weren't as fancy back then, but we had more friends. In 2011, this was simply a warehouse in Wynwood. A little bit of graffiti shows up by 2015. The neighborhood starts to gentrify and the graffiti becomes more intensive. And by 2023, there's actually a billboard for Montana Cans, a company that sells spray paint cans. In 2007, most of Wynwood was just warehouses. Today, it's completely been gentrified. And while there were a few graffiti murals in Wynwood back then, it was a very dangerous neighborhood. Not anywhere you would go with an expensive car. Look at how much this neighborhood in Northwest Miami changed in only a 3-year period. Might look nicer and more modern, but I think it lost a little bit of character. Here's Coral Gables in 2008, and by 2023, it's pretty much unrecognizable. I think many times people talk bad about Miami because they haven't been there in so long, and they're not aware of how nice Miami is today. In 2011, this house looked horrendous. However, today somebody bought it, fixed it up, and it actually looks really decent. Now in 2009, the house right next to it was pretty nice. By 2023, it looked like a junkyard parking lot. By the amount of cars here, I'm gonna guess there's a lot of people living in this house, which goes to show that in one neighborhood, some people are trying to make their lives and their properties better, while other people are doing the complete opposite. Some neighborhoods, however, really don't like changes. Pay attention to the green Ford Explorer. Pay attention to the payphone. You'll notice that as time passes in this little Havana neighborhood, they still kept the same exact car they had before. Sure, they had to replace the fence. Sure, they got rid of the metal bars both on the market and on the house. The color themes did not change. And sure, they changed the fence and they got rid of the metal bars on the windows. But overall, even the brand and color of vehicle this person drives are exactly the same. This characteristic of being really slow to make changes, I think, is part of a lot of older Cuban people, even to the point where if they get a new vehicle, it'll be the same exact brand and color as the one they had before. As I explored the little Havana neighborhood, if I saw any changes, they were only in materials being replaced with something newer. If the house got painted, they didn't really change the color too much. It seems like this community is really fighting back changes. And really, the reason they're not featured so much on today's video is because nothing has changed at all. Look at this apartment complex in Hialeah. In 2011 to 2023, almost nothing changed at all. And I have a theory on why this is the case. Hialeah is also a Cuban community, just like Little Havana. In the country of Cuba, the Cuban government did not allow people to sell their homes or move from one place to another. And one characteristic of Hispanic communities in the United States, especially Cubans, is that they have the mindset that once they move into a place, they're never going to move out. And if anything changes, even if it's for the better, they look at it with contempt. I can think of Cuban families who've been in the United States for 20 years and they haven't moved once. So it seems like, unaware of it, a lot of Cubans kind of hold on to whatever the crap the Cuban government did to them, and to this day it affects how they live unbeknownst to them. Habits formed by a dictatorship that they carry on without even knowing it. I noticed a lot of this as well when I lived in Alabama. People that just try to hold on to time and not change. And I don't mean in a political way, I mean like in a daily habits and like how you carry about yourself type of way. But anyways, I found how little these areas change and how subtly they change kind of interesting. And really, in Southwest Miami, I struggled to find too many changes. This house went from being yellow to being blue, to finally getting torn down and being an empty lot. And then they started to build a house, and this was really one of the few examples that I found in Southwest Miami of any substantial change. By 2023, a beautiful new house had been built. However, while on the residential side it is slow to change, on the commercial side, things change rapidly in Southwest Miami. In 2009, this was a vacant building, nothing special. By 2011, it was a Cuban TV station. By 2013, El Costo was coming soon. Apparently, it's like a clothing store. There it is, El Costo's open. Now there's people hanging outside. There's a bus stop. More people hanging outside. Everything looks normal. By 2015, you can see now 2021. Oh, El Costo's out of business and the building's for sale. And in 2023, it's closed down and there's homeless people sleeping outside. This may look like ups and downs of people's businesses, but there's actually a huge story to be told in how this happened. This is the story of how immigration policy shapes and reforms communities in the United States. In 2009, the economy was bad, so the business center was closed. In 2011, the Cubans were really happy that Obama had allowed them to go to Cuba, so they even opened up a dang Cuban talk show about it. Then they're like, hey, forget about the talk show, let's start a clothing store so we can sell clothing that people can take back to Cuba. Well, the policy changed, and now you're not allowed to go to Cuba anymore, so that business failed. And with the current status, you have homeless people sleeping outside of those businesses. Politicians, with their policies on immigration, have taken this Miami community for a complete roller coaster ride. People invest, open businesses that in 2 or 3 years down the road are forced to fail, not because it wasn't a good business idea, but because the constantly changing policies on immigration affect the economy of these communities. But the end result is always the same. The Latin business has to close and all the money that was invested is lost. This series of photos right here of this particular business just illustrates the negative effect that all these immigration changes have on Latino communities. Here comes one politician and opens one door. The next one comes, he closes it, and then they open it again. But every time they open and close that door, people in communities suffer greatly. And I find it interesting how much destruction has happened to Latino communities in Florida because of these sudden changes. And I don't think anything good comes from it. I think it just shatters people's dreams and they have to try to start again and rebuild their lives. And it kind of shows me too why the more hardcore veteran Cuban communities like in Little Havana are very subtle to change. They understand that change destroys communities. Whether it's the complete elimination of the African American community in the Northwest sector or the complete destruction of Latin American businesses in Southwest Miami, political changes, immigration changes have the power to completely reshape the Five River community and bring entire sectors of the economy to a closed door. I want to say I feel bad for these businesses, but when I think about it, they were kind of stupid and naive to think that they could invest huge sums of money into businesses that depended on immigration laws. They really believed that these laws were going to give them an advantage that was going to make them wealthy. Little did they know that they were just puppets of an ever-changing political world. Perhaps people thought sending clothes to another country or starting a talk show about a political something was going to make them money. These were just temporary distractions and very short-lived dreams. But what I find a little infuriating is how while living in Florida, they sell you a dream. You think you're going to start a business. You think things are going to go right for you. And all that's just to have it taken away and watch these same Latino communities be destructed time and time again. And I'm sure the African American community could probably feel the same way. They give you a little bit of hope and laws and changes, and you think it's going to make your world better. You invest all this money, you work hard. And then, oh, they change the laws and no, you can close your doors. It's almost like a game to see you build something so they can destroy it. In 2009, a sports tuner drives past an old house, maybe a bungalow. But in 2023, luxury vehicles drive past brand new multi-story construction. 2009, this was a Hispanic hardware store. By 2018, it had been graffitied out, maybe even closed. And in 2023, it looks like it's going to be a restaurant or a newer business. Alright everybody, that is the time-lapse changes that the city of Miami has experienced over the years thanks to Google imagery. I would say that Miami is a much better place today than it was in the past, with a lot more investment. More people are working, rebuilding their homes and making their home life better, and less people are out and about vagrant. However, with ever-changing immigration laws, it seems like the communities that were catering to Latin American business are starting to become more run down as homeless people from other places are trying to move into the areas that were once Hispanic. I really personally don't understand why you would want to get rid of somebody that starts a business and tries to be successful and try to replace them with somebody who's nothing more than a drug addict or a bum. I feel that Florida could be a much better place if instead of constantly changing immigration laws that destroy Latin American communities, they actually allowed these hardworking communities to grow, prosper, and make the United States a better place. Despite all these challenges and changes, Miami continues to become one of the most attractive cities in the country, where neighborhoods that in the past were dangerous today are up and coming. Homes that were abandoned are today being restored to beautiful modern looks. But the entire fortune of entire communities depends on factors they cannot control that are much bigger and more powerful than them, may it be gentrification or changing laws. The ability to completely displace communities need to constantly reinvent themselves to keep up with the changing laws. Take Miami Beach, where the smell of something that's not legal in Florida is all over the air, but the second that you park your vehicle in the wrong place, it's a good opportunity to give you a fine. Florida is, in many ways and for many reasons, one of the most economically vulnerable states to changes. The areas that in 2007 and 2008 had the second highest drop in property values, today are once again the fastest growing communities in the entire country. Joining the ranks of business in Florida is kind of like gambling in a casino, yet the players coming to the table never stop lining up. I think a lot of people who speak badly about Miami are because they're from there and they can't afford to live there anymore. The place is far too demanding and they're far too lazy to keep up with the ever-changing efforts that living in Miami requires. Or simply, their perceived notion of Miami is clearly antiquated, no longer current to the actual situation on the ground. They think because they got robbed in 1972 while being in Miami, that the same thing's gonna happen to them in 2023. If we had to say affirmatively that Miami has gone to crap, that's really an invalid statement. Miami has been improving for the most part, and unfortunately it's left a few of the communities that are most vulnerable and weakest economically being displaced by richer and more powerful people. But it does seem like the richer are getting richer and the poor are definitely getting poorer. But it is good to notice that Miami itself has neighborhoods that are not changing a whole lot. The eviction of large numbers of Latin American communities have simply meant the destruction of small businesses. Without a doubt, one of the most threatened neighborhoods in Miami is Little Haiti, where mom and pop places are being replaced with what's clearly generic businesses, wiping away the fiber of what was definitely one of the most unique communities in the United States.